Love, death, and the choices of the living. Such themes are integral to the tarot. Likewise, these themes are the bedrock of folklore. In Mystic Toolkit, our speaker teases out these links between Philippine folklore and the tarot. So let me introduce our speaker. Louie Jon A. Sánchez is a poet, critic, and translator, an associate professor at the College of Mass Communication, University of the Philippines Diliman. He teaches courses on the teleserye and television studies, as well as being an expert on the melodrama. He is a level 2 certified Reiki healer who gives tarot readings. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Louie Jon Sánchez. Good morning, Louie.
Good morning, Charlene. Good morning, everyone in the webinar, as well as our followers on Facebook. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and, well, not faces, but names. And thank you very much for joining us this morning.
I'm glad to know that your fan club is here. I'm sure they'll be great for discussion. Could you give us a bit of a teaser of what you have in store for today?
Well, we'll be talking about the mysteries of love, no? By way of course, Pinoy folklore, which I will be extensively discussing, and tarot. No? So we will be using these, texts sort of as parallels, no, to talk about our perspective, no, our cultural perspective on love, no, because it's Valentine season. It's going to be Valentine's Day on Tuesday, I think. So I hope everyone enjoys my sharing this morning.
I'm sure they will. The mysteries of love is the perfect phrase for the upcoming Valentine's holiday. So I won't delay this lecture any longer. And without further ado, I give the floor to Louie Sánchez.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Good morning, everyone. Again, I am Louie Jon Sánchez, LJ for short. I am very honored to accompany you in FHL in reflecting on Pinoy folklore and the tarot during this webinar. Some years before the pandemic, using the tarot grew in popularity. It is likely that the unpredictability of our lives prompted many of us to seek ways of coping with it. For my part, it's quite easy to explain my stake in Pinoy folklore. I have been trained in literature and creative writing before venturing into cultural and media studies. A journalist and writer, I have also devoted the past decade teaching college students how to read and write. Writing in Filipino and English, I have also begun doing literary translation. How did I get into the tarot as a spiritual practice? Some of you may have exactly the same reason, a heartbreak. Although raised as a Catholic and initially hesitant to go anywhere near the tarot, I finally decided to get a deck one afternoon at a Kinokuniya outlet in Singapore. A dear friend taught me the basics, and for over a year, I found comfort in writing daily tarot reflections. My favorite card in the major arcana was the Hermit. I imagined him living alone in a cave or on a mountaintop, holding a lamp shining with his inner light or inner fire. Tarot became a means of self-healing. In Buddhist language, it helped me become my own light. You all may be wondering about the title. In what ways is the tarot deck a mystic toolkit? What do we really mean by that phrase? I shared how I began my tarot journey to emphasize its handiness. The tarot is an easy-to-carry bag of tools. Any person can become a mystic or mystikos at any point in the journey of self-healing. A mystikos, or an initiated person, someone who is coming to grips with the mysteries of this very journey. The word mystery needs no long explanation. It describes things we cannot quite comprehend, even if they exert a force in our lives. Hard to pin down mysteries ask us to name our experience of complexity and ambiguity. This webinar's thesis is this: mystic toolkits, whatever their composition, give shape to very fluid experiences of mysteries like the mysteries of love. When the shapes arise, we boost our odds at gaining wisdom, or what we call in Tagalog, karunungan. At the very start, it is useful to remind ourselves that the tarot by itself belongs to folklore. It is not something that stands outside folk practices, but throughout its long tradition, forms part of it. It is part of the gaming and divination practices in early European folk life. This means that folklore, from whatever context, fundamentally springs from the same sources as the tarot. Damiana Eugenio, the foremost Filipino folklorist, defines folklore as a systematic label for a whole gamut of cultural practices. According to Eugenio, the term refers to all kinds of traditional knowledge of the folk, their oral literature, their arts and crafts and beliefs, games and amusements, their magic and ritual. The goal today is to do strategic close readings of Pinoy folklore and the tarot, and to glean some insights into the mystery making our hearts beat faster than usual. Another favorite author of mine, Diane Ackerman, celebrated for her natural history series, says that love is the great intangible. Everyone admits that love is wonderful and necessary, yet no one can agree on what it is. Can Pinoy folklore and tarot help in sorting this great intangible? Let us get to the journey then and explore what our folk culture and cartomancy reveal about that thing called pag-ibig. To say the least, love in our language and in our Filipino worldview is pretty complicated. While the dictionaries of Virgilio Almario and the Commission sa Wikang Filipino agree that it is an intense feeling directed towards another person, it slips into other senses. It touches on aspirations and liking, desire and lust, and care and compassion. Even the Vocabulario de la Lengua Tagala of the Franciscan missionaries Juan de Noceda and Pedro de Sanlucar records the complexity of the word ibig. From this entry on the screen, as translated by to Filipino by Almario, Elvin Ebreo, and Ana Maria Iglopas, ibig ranges all forms of love and liking, from ordinary fondness or hilig to hunger and insatiability, katakawan as we would say. The range explains perhaps the association we make between love and eating. No? We usually describe our feelings of love and yes, even intimacy as masarap. Sarap encapsulates all lightness, delight, and pleasure love and relationships give. And sarap is most satisfying when it is shared with another person we desire, the beloved. After grounding our discussion to our indigenous moorings of love, we move on to explicating the converging romantic perspectives of Pinoy folklore and the tarot. It is as complicated as the meanings of the word pag-ibig. Allow me, however, to point to 4 insights, which I will supply with cursory readings of Pinoy folk myths culled from Eugenio among other sources, as well as enriching parallelisms of particular tarot images. The four insights are as follows. Pakikipagsapalaran, ang pag-ibig. Love is a quest. Matatapang lang ang umiibig. Love is not for the faint of heart. Masakit ang pag-ibig. Love hurts. And finally, malikhain ang pag-ibig. Love creates. Love is a quest. It is a journey of a hero or heroine, an adventure awaiting fulfillment. It begins with many possibilities and major risk-taking. Filipino critic Isagani Cruz observes that love is at the core of Pinoy folk epics. The proof is that two of the stages, Cruz's list, refer to love as key to the narratives. Number 3, for instance, says, dadalhin o pupunta ang bayani sa puok kung saan naroroon ng isang hinahanap na karaniwan ay isang mahal sa buhay. The hero will go or will be led to a place where what he seeks may be found, usually the loved one, a relative or a person desired romantically. Number 11, magpapakasal ang bayani. The hero will get married. Many epic journeys end with the love union. Seeking the loved one, at least in the hero's story, is imperative. The plot turns, Isagani Cruz mentions as number 3 and number 11, suggests that the romantic pairing is central to the mission of the hero or heroine. To seek happiness is to seek romantic fulfillment, whatever the dangers may be in the way. Come hell or high water, the hero or heroine goes driven by longing. We might say he or she is a fool for love. In light of the two plot lines, Isagani Cruz underlines what comes to mind is the fool in tarot. In Filipina artist Brenda Fajardo's work, the fool is called ang gaga, feminine brazenness personified with no care for the world of limits, criticism, and judgment. For the gaga, the horizon is far and wide. Another Filipino word is instructive here, hangal. The fool, gaga, and hangal take courage from the fact that love is its own reason for being. There is no other. The fool is also a court jester, a figure in Hiligaynon folklore, the prankster or trickster, or what we call the pusong. The pusong is often regarded as naive, but the trickster has a secret power. She or he can turn the tables on the powerful and get the better of kings and tacticians. Lovers are pusong in a way and would move mountains. The pusong has subversive power because he or she is willing to go for broke, hahamakin ng lahat, as Francisco Balagtas would say. The fool, gaga, or hangal puts everything on the line just to be united with the love object or the beloved. The trickster's boldness and risk-taking is found in the Panayanon epic Hinilawod, arguably our version of the Odyssey. The pusong in that story is the highly esteemed woman of the community, or the binukot named Nagmalitong Yawa. In a gripping episode of Hinilawod, the binukot goes on a dangerous journey to save the hero humadapnon from wicked binukots. Nagmalitong Yawa initially hesitates to go in search of her beloved. Humadapnon's mission, after all, is to find someone to marry her. Deciding to rescue the hero, Nagmalitong Yawa transforms herself into a man named Buyungson Masakay. She defeats the wicked binukots and frees humadapnon. In the end, Buyungsun Masakay turns back into Nagmalitong Yawa. The story, as if Landa Hocano records it, describes her as a woman of outstanding beauty. She enamors the hero. If the beautiful Binukot decided to stay put, if she feared risking her reputation and being deemed foolish, gaga, or hangal, she would not have gained Humadapnon's love. No. Love takes courage. It is not for the fearful, but for the strong, for the sakalam, as we would say. However, not all love gets a happy ending. Our epics are filled with courtship and sex, but folklore is also rich with absurdity, with the unrequited kindness of gagas and nangals, a love that often results in their vanishing. Take, for instance, the Tres Marias, the legendary Marys of Pinoy folklore. Arguably, the most familiar is the story of Mariang Makiling, the mystical diwata residing in the mountain named after her in Laguna. In an issue of the periodical La Solidaridad, Jose Rizal, writing as Laong-Laan, recalls the legend of her vanishing. Mariang Makiling disappears after a string of betrayals. Other readers call it pagtatampo or disaffection after ungrateful townsfolk take advantage of her generosity. They take from her treasures like the ginger that turns into gold more than what suffices. Mariang Makiling's heartbreak, however, happens with a young man seeking refuge in her forest. The diwata falls in love with him, but he marries someone else. Just before the wedding, the diwata gives him a gift for the bride, and she vanishes for all time, leaving him and the townsfolk to fend for themselves in their struggles. The two Marias, Mariang Sinukuan of the Kapampangans and Mariang Kakao of the Cebuanos, likewise disappear forever at the end of their tales. Humans betray the Tres Marias with their greed, and the diwatas end up ghosting the people they once loved. Makiling, Sinukuan, and Kakao epitomize selflessness to the point of vulnerability. I link these Tres Marias to three tarot majors: the Empress, nurturer and loving benefactor; the High Priestess, keeper of the hidden knowledge; and the Star, balance between inner and outer lives. These tarot majors all keep in check our tendency to amass material possessions. Possessive love is no different from the drive for accumulation. It distracts us from the abundant sources of gifts, the sources enabling compassion and generosity. In my reading, the vanishing of the Tres Marias is a turn away from possessive loving and into godly formlessness. The love of diwatas culminates in detachment, a return to darkness that still guides human aspiration, like stars shining in collective memory. Still, on the subject of folklore vanishing, perhaps our primal version of ghosting, I now turn to the last myth, or to the myth of Tungkong Langit and Alunsina. The people of Panay recall these gods, husband and wife, existing in primordial chaos, while Tungkong Langit is busy putting order to the worldless universe, while Alunsina gets bored staying at home. In jealousy, she sends the winds to spy on her husband, and she incurs his wrath. Tungkong Langit strips her of all her powers. She leaves him vanishing without a trace, soon unable to bear his solitude. Tungkong Langit goes in search of his wife. But Aluncina never reappears. In the wake of seeking her, Tungkong Langit creates the skies, the sea, land, and vegetation. He makes the earth flower. He spreads his absent wife's jewels across the sky, which become the stars. Her comb becomes the moon and her crown becomes the sun. Never finding Aluncina, unable to show her his creations, he weeps, and his wailing and tears become thunder and rain, which continuously reshape the world. The Panayanon origin story teaches us that love creates even in suffering or grief. But must we believe that there is always life after the breakdown of love? Tungkong Langit's restless journey prompts more questions than answers. What do we make of our sad longings during romantic celebrations fueled by consumerism? A consumerism that often manipulates our need to belong. Tungkong Langit's suffering results in creation, but he still seems inconsolable, perhaps neglecting the magnificence of what he has made. After the hurt, are we mindful of what we make and who we become? How do we rise from the wreckage? How do we move on? These questions speak directly to the lovers in the tarot, a card signifying relationships, including the relationship with the self, an integration of opposing forces within, like love and death, for instance. Traditionally, this card reflects on the concept of choice. To love is to choose. Whether in pain or joy, it is we who decide our value and, in relation to us, the value of the other person. The Tres Marias offers a lesson on balancing two opposing tendencies in folklore plots. On the one hand, there is love as unconditional generosity. On the other hand, there is love as a demand for equality, a dance of give and take. Tungkong Langit via Negativa offers a similar lesson. His dance, even with an absent Aluncina, becomes the origin of the world. To end my talk on folklore, I want to come full circle with the first insight about risk-taking. After the hurt, love alters us, but it also has the power to renew itself even after the deepest losses. In doing so, it can create ourselves anew. Pinoy folklore even imagines that love's creative power can surpass that of death. Take one last example from the story of Lamang. In this Ilocano epic, Lamang instructs his wife Ines Canoyan what to do when he dies after battling a shark. When her husband dies, Ines feels the house shake. She tells the people to gather her husband's bones from the sea. She then performs a ritual with a white rooster, a hen, and a pet dog. Still grieving, she covers the bones with her long skirt. She makes the chickens crow and the dog howl. Through this rite, Ines retrieves Lamang from the void and they live happily ever after. The composer Von de Guzman and librettist Jose Capino has made a song about this very moment in their musical version of the epic. I wish us to listen to to this part of the recording featuring the late Alexis Ajalin.
Hindi kita pawawalan, agawin man ng sinuman, kunin man ang buhay mo, muli ay babawiin ko. Susundan ang iyong yapak, tutuntunin ang iyong bakas. Anino mo'y tatagpuin, ang iningay kakapain. Pakikinggan ang iyong pulso, pati lukso ng iyong dugo. Alam na mahanap ko, tibok ng puso mo.
When Ines follows Lamang's instructions, she does not yet know its outcome, but she takes a risk anyway. She does the ritual as a kind of pakikipagsapalaran. De Guzman and Capino portray her risk-taking by letting her sing her husband's bones back to life. Must we believe in this fantastic story? Folklore does not demand belief. Simply, it offers imagination, helping us to overpower the inertia of our mortality. Lamang shows us that yes, love can defy loss. A love life is possible even after death. Good morning, Josti Agnina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, LJ. That was a talk that spoke to the heart, both the beauty and the pain of love. I'm sure our audience is warm to developing these ideas through the Q&A. On that note, are you ready for the questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's officially open the floor for discussion. As a reminder, Zoom attendees may use the Q&A box. We give priority to that box over questions typed in the chat box. For Facebook viewers, please use the comment section of the Facebook live stream. We'll do our best to get to all your questions, though there's generally not enough time in these open forums. But with that said, we already have some questions coming in. And the first question has to do with one of your big examples, which is the Tres Marias. This viewer would like to know, why does it seem that women are the most common examples of love hurts?
Well, archetypally, no, we have to discuss it archetypally, not stereotypically. The female figure is the figure of intuition, and of course they usually get these very strong feels or feelings, and experiences. But I'd rather think, that it's not always the case. So you have, for example, Tungkong Langit, experiencing all the grief and creating the world. So I think it also varies from culture to culture.
I see. There's always the positive and the negative, I think, is what we can take away from that. But continuing the matriarchal theme, it's notable how the Brenda Fajardo deck transforms the fool into a woman, which you pointed out in the webinar. Could you develop the implications of this change?
Yeah, before I answer that, I must invite our followers, our attendees, to see this deck, and it is available at the Philippines Heritage Library. It is a deck that translates, the tarot from the Marseille deck, and the translation turns it into a matriarchal rendition, all right, where you have almost all of the characters being rendered as the feminine. Now, I think what happens there is, of course, no, the translation turns it into what the culture is all about. So there are a lot of tarot translations sort of happening everywhere. And I think, when the tarot or anything is translated, the context is, integrated, into the elements.
Thank you as well for the promotion of the library's holdings. We greatly appreciate that, and we hope people do visit us to view that wonderful deck. The next question, I hope you don't mind, is a little bit more personal. An attendee says, can you share a brief history of the tarot? You mentioned that people usually start turning to it due to a heartache. So is that the main purpose of the tarot, given all those cards as well?
Well, believed to be of Italian origin in the 15th century, it began as a card game. All right, so one historian that I've read or consulted, Christina Olsen, reported that it was used in complex card games resembling bridge. All right, but of course, eventually, the cards had been used, by a lot of people for something else, like fortune telling. So in a way, that briefly, there is a transition from it being a game, pagiging laro, gawain ng pag-aaliw, for entertainment, and laro as pagtataya, because you use the cards for betting, it transitions into a game or an exploration of how we venture through life. So about the question of going to the tarot, when you have a heartache, well, it's a very uncertain situation. So people tend to want to know what to do or what should happen or what could possibly happen to them. And the tarot somehow brings, a sense of certainty, something to hold on to, in a moment as dark as a heartbreak.
Yes, it's really a bonding moment when you can share stories and experiences like that. Since we are on a Valentine theme and the webinar featured such great folklore epics and how love plays a crucial role, one viewer is asking, when we look at the folklore stories mentioned earlier, are there any ideas about how one can become lovable?
Well, I go back to the Tres Marias again. No? They are, a very good examples, illustrations of the kind of people who, or the kind of love that we should embody. So I think it's more of a matter of, what kind of love. No, I mean, you can turn yourself into anything lovable, in so many ways. But I think it's always a question of what kind of love can you give, no? Anong klaseng pag-ibig ang maibibigay mo, no? What kind of love can you give? And of course, we remember all these axioms about, you cannot give what you cannot give what you do not have, etc., etc. So my learnings from the Tres Marias is that, and this is really an awesome insight, as I was doing the lecture, we should love like the gods. you know, parang, and sometimes when you come to think of it, the love of a god is something that no one really deserves. So we love anyway. No, that kind of love is the love that we have to aspire for.
Yes. And actually, one of the details I loved about your talk was how the word love in our language has multiple valencies, so
Yes.
many different meanings that not all languages can capture, those multiple forms of love. This isn't a question, but we have a comment, a follow-up comment from an attendee. I think they asked the previous question. Their comment simply is just a thought to the answer. From the very mundane as a card game, the tarot acquired mysticism.
Yes.
Yes, it's a wonderful register. We have a few more questions. Let's get through them. This one seems to be from let's call it Gen Z. It's a younger oriented question. And this person is asking, how can you make a story using Philippine folklore and tarot that will not feel or sound corny or cringy?
Well, I think the first thing that you will have to think about is how to, shift your perspective about what is cringy and what is not. All right. Anything that you create is really personal. All right. And you just have to stop yourself from judging whether your story is cringy or not. No? And sometimes, very strong experiences like love and heartache, they tend to be a little bit sappy, right? But let us remember that these are significant human experiences. All right. And you really have to aspire for the authenticity, the authenticity of its telling. No? And you will only be authentic, I think, if you break down all those judgments about experiences being, profound, and cringy or sappy. All right. It needs a paradigm shift, from within the writer.
Yes. And this next question I actually think of as a bit of a preview, because if our audience is not aware, there is also a writing workshop that will follow this webinar. And I'm wondering if this person is one of our participants. It's anonymous.
Well, I hope so. If the participant is, you'll find out what techniques or what methods could be possibly done to achieve that kind of authenticity.
So the question actually says, how can one interpret a tarot card when writing a story? Do we need to consult an expert who really reads tarot cards? And is there even an expert for such a thing?
Well, I'd like to speak for myself. Tarot, when I was beginning to read, was completely foreign language. I did not understand it. All right. But my friend who taught me said that, you just have to look at the image, and look at the story that's taking place there. So there's a story actually that takes place in the card, and when you start spreading them out, putting them together, they create a larger story. So what tarot has taught me, as far as storytelling is concerned, is trusting the tale that is in the image. It's very dynamic. It's just been frozen, in the sketch or in the illustration, but there's something happening there. It is a captured present moment. So that's what you need to develop, as a writer, even as a reader of tarot. Of course, the interpretations are all over the internet. You can just look them up. You don't need an expert to advise you. But it also helps not to, to trust yourself as well, no, telling the tale of what you see.
I see. Well, we're going to develop those ideas in the workshop
Yes.
that's coming up. And I think we only have time for two more questions. So here are the last two questions. The first one is from Krishna, because I have a name now. And this person says, how often is tarot used in the Philippines? Is there a strong tarot culture? I understand that the islands are very heavily influenced by the Catholic Church, which looked down upon the usage of tarot.
Mm. I don't have data for that, no, but my first experience or my first encounter with tarot is outside Quiapo Church. No, and there are a lot of fortune tellers there. I'm not just sure if they're still there. I mean, they've cleaned up Plaza Miranda, but when I was in college, I was writing a story on Quiapo, no, and one of my informants as a fortune teller, no. So you can actually sit down there and talk to the fortune teller, and then pay a fee, no, small fee for your fortune, no. um I'm thinking that it's become popular to a lot of young people. No, when I was still teaching in, for example, in Ateneo, I'm hearing a lot of talk, no, from my students. So they bought this and that deck, etc., etc. A lot of people are very interested, no, to develop their reading skills of the tarot. But you see, no, this is already happening in another class, no, the higher class. My own experience, my first experience of it is really pop, no, happened outside the church in Quiapo. So I'm thinking it's something that we have to consider across classes, right? And I just don't have data right now, but I'm assuming it is something that is very much part of the culture. You see it in television, on movies, there's always a manghuhula. Okay, so
It's very much a part of our culture. And I mean, it wouldn't be surprising to know even that maybe powerful people, consult tarot readers in secret.
oh yes, actually there are historical accounts, no, of this and that first lady or president,
Exactly.
consulting oracles. All right, so they're well, not documented, no, but they're in some novels,
Yeah. And the oral
historical novels.
tradition,
Yes,
it's maybe
yes,
passed along as
yeah,
gossip, but there is always
yes,
truth to some of that.
yes, that's true.
So here is our final question. It's very interesting. And I think, the library can help this person if they want to pursue this topic. But our attendee is asking, when planning to make one's own tarot deck based on Philippine folklore, which books or stories do you suggest we look into, and where do we find them?
Oh,
Well, our library would be a good place to start.
you've come to the right place.
Yes, this is the right place.
Yeah, well, of course, I mentioned Damiana Eugenio. No, the entire collection of Damiana Eugenio is very, very valuable. The work of Edgar Samar is very interesting as well. You can check it out. A lot of things. There's a lot of scholarship that's been put into Pinoy folklore. My favorite is the Soul Book by
Yeah,
Sialcita, Hilda Cordero Fernando,
Fernando.
yeah, three authors. I forgot the. All
The
right.
illustrator, I'm embarrassed to say I also forgot the name of the
Yeah.
illustrator.
So there are a lot of works that have been done, no, in the past, and there are still a lot of things being put out. No, for example, in UP Press, they're still putting out you know um you know uh newly published recordings of some epics, from the Panay Island. Very, very interesting. No, last year I've just edited a new recording of an epic from from Cordillera, no?
Amazing.
A lot of sex actually. A lot of love and sex there. Love and sex at every turn. So, parang it's all in our epics.
And that's where the delight, right? To be satiated came in. And I'm afraid that's all we have for today. But I just wanted to tell the viewers that the books that Louie mentioned can be found here in the library. So please come visit us if you want to learn more about Philippine folklore. Louie, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and engaging Q&A discussion. Of course, we also want to thank our audience for sending in questions and for simply joining us today. Your participation has been invaluable. Louie, do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
Well, very, very short. Continue living and loving. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Louie. If you enjoyed today's free lecture, please follow FHL social media pages for updates, as well as the Ayala Foundation and the Ayala Museum. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. The Ayala Museum and the Filipinas Heritage Library are open to visitors and researchers. To book a visit or to learn about upcoming programs, go to ayalamuseum.org and filipinaslibrary.org.ph. Again, thank you, everyone. We hope this was an engaging experience. Please stay safe and stay healthy. See you at our next webinar.